You are listening to HOA Busted. I wish this was exaggerated. My name is Dan. I am a plumber in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I am standing in my own driveway at 7 in the morning watching a woman in a pink jacket slap a violation sticker on my windshield while her portable thermal printer spits out a second copy for her records. She does not look up. She does not ask questions. She just presses the sticker down hard enough that I know it is going to leave residue. Then she steps back and aims her phone camera at my front plate like she is documenting a crime scene. Her name is Sharon, but everyone calls her Diane Roberts when they are trying to be polite, and she is the Pool and Amenities Chair for the Foxglove Falls Ridge Association. That means she controls access like a bouncer, decides who gets guest passes, who gets towed, and who gets to use the clubhouse. I moved here 6 months ago because the neighborhood looked quiet and the price was right, and for the first 3 months everything was fine. Then I started getting certified letters, one every few days, sometimes 2 in the same mail run. They were all about parking. My truck was too close to the mailbox cluster. My friend's car did not have a guest pass displayed. I parked on the street during a fictitious street sweeping window. My truck was in a fire lane that does not exist. Every letter had the same threat at the bottom, in bold: failure to comply may result in towing at owner's expense and additional fines. I ignored the first few because they were obviously wrong, but Sharon did not stop. She started leaving notes under my wiper, then she started taking photos at night. Then she started showing up in person with that little thermal printer and her ring binder full of highlighted parking rules that she calls the standard. This morning she is here because yesterday I had a friend park in my driveway for 20 minutes while we swapped a water heater. And apparently that counts as a violation, because Sharon has decided my driveway is common area. I step outside, and she finally looks up. "Your driveway is not your driveway," she says. "It is an access easement for emergency vehicles and pool maintenance. You cannot block it with unauthorized vehicles." I take a breath. I have been dealing with this for weeks, and my health has been fragile lately. The sleep disruption is making it worse. Every time I hear a car door slam at night, I wake up thinking she is back with another sticker, another photo, another notice. I cannot keep doing this. "Sharon, my driveway is on my property deed. It is not common area." She smiles and taps her binder. "Your paperwork is cute, mine has a letterhead. If you make me repeat myself, it gets more expensive." I feel my jaw tighten, but I stay calm. I have been keeping my own records. Photos, timestamps, copies of every letter she has sent. I also reached out to the county yesterday and got confirmation that the HOA misrepresented an ordinance in writing when they claimed my driveway was part of an emergency access zone. That is my evidence type. I have not told Sharon yet because I am waiting for the right moment, and I have one more piece of proof that I am holding back until she tries to escalate again. I stayed calm because I had one piece of proof that would end the whole game. She folds her arms. "I am scheduling a tow for this afternoon unless you move every vehicle off the so-called driveway and submit a written request for a variance. And before you ask, variances take 6 weeks and require board approval." I point at my truck. That is my truck. It is not blocking anything. She shakes her head. "Fire lane access requires a 12-foot clearance. You are at 11 feet 2 inches. I measured. I do not bother asking how she got that number, because I know she made it up. This is what she does. She throws out measurements and codes and deadlines, and if you push back, she just invents a new rule. Last week she told me guest parking required a 72-hour advance permit application. Then 2 days later she said it was 48 hours. Then she said guests could not park overnight at all. The rules change depending on who she is targeting. I will move my truck, I say. But I am not signing anything that says my driveway is common area. She clicks her pen. "Then you will be towed. Have a nice day." She walks back to her car, a white sedan with an HOA parking enforcement magnet on the door, and drives off. I stand there for a minute trying to process what just happened. Then I go inside and call my buddy Rick, who works as a gate vendor technician and has dealt with HOA systems for years. He answers on the second ring. "Rick, she is trying to tow me from my own driveway." He laughs, but it is not a funny laugh. It is the laugh of someone who has seen this before. Does she have any actual authority? She is the pool chair. She acts like she runs the whole HOA. Does the HOA have a towing contract? I do not know. Probably. Find out. If they do, check if the contract requires board approval for each tow, or if she can just call it in herself. A lot of these small HOAs give way too much power to committee chairs and they end up abusing it. I thank him and hang up. Then I dig through my files and find the HOA covenant. It is a mess. Half the pages are scanned crooked, the font changes 3 times, and there are handwritten notes in the margins that look like they were added later. I find the section on parking enforcement and it says towing requires written authorization from the board president or compliance officer. But it does not define compliance officer, and it does not say whether committee chairs count. I text Rick a photo of the page and he replies 5 minutes later, "That is a gray area." Gray areas equal HOA power grabs. I spend the rest of the morning finishing a toilet install for a client, and when I get home at 2 in the afternoon there is a tow truck in my driveway. Not near my driveway. In it. The driver is hooking up my truck. I pull in behind him and jump out. "Hey, what are you doing?" He does not look up. Tow order. Vehicle is in violation. Violation of what? He pulls a paper from his clipboard and shows me. It is a pre-printed form with Sharon's signature at the bottom, and a box check that says fire lane obstruction. The date is today. The time is 30 minutes ago. This is my driveway. It is not a fire lane. He shrugs. I just follow the order. You got a problem, call the HOA. I take a photo of the paper, then I step in front of the truck. I am not letting you take my truck. He stops cranking the winch and gives me a look. "Sir, if you interfere I will call the police." Call them. This is illegal. He pulls out his phone and dials. I stay where I am. My heart is pounding and I feel dizzy, but I am not moving. A few minutes later a police cruiser pulls up and an officer gets out. The driver explains the situation and the officer asks to see my registration and the tow order. I show him both, plus a photo of my property deed that I pulled up on my phone. The officer looks at the deed, then at the tow order, then at the driveway. He walks the perimeter, checks the curb, and comes back shaking his head. This does not look like a fire lane to me. The driver points at the paper. I got authorization from the HOA. The officer hands the paper back. The HOA does not have the authority to declare a private driveway a fire lane. That is a municipal code issue. If there is no fire lane marking and no municipal violation, this tow is not valid. The driver looks annoyed, but he unhooks my truck and leaves. The officer gives me his card and tells me to file a complaint with the HOA management company if this continues. I thank him and he drives off, and I stand there in my driveway watching the tow truck disappear around the corner. I am shaking. Not from anger, from exhaustion. This has been going on for weeks, and it is getting worse. That night I get another certified letter. This one says I am being fined $250 for interfering with HOA enforcement, and that a hearing has been scheduled for next week. The letter does not say where the hearing is or who will be there, just that failure to attend will result in additional fines and possible legal action. I call Rick again. They are threatening collections language and I need to stop it before it impacts my credit, I say. Do you have any evidence that they are making this up? I have photos, timestamps, the county confirmation about the ordinance. I also have something else. A few days ago I ran into a guy named Tom who used to be on the board, and he told me Sharon has been doing this for years. She targets people she does not like, buries them in violations, and either forces them to sell or makes them so miserable they stop fighting back. He said she has a pattern and a motive, and he was willing to put it in writing. I got him to sign a certified statement describing her behavior, and I have been holding on to it because I knew she was going to escalate. Rick whistles. That is your trump card. Do not use it until she tries to shut you down completely. If you drop it too early, she will just deny it and move on. Wait until she thinks she has won, then hit her with it. I agree, and I spend the next few days preparing. I print out every letter, every photo, every email. I organize them in a binder with tabs and highlights, just like Sharon does. I also file a records request with the HOA management company, asking for copies of all towing authorizations from the past year, all board meeting minutes, and all correspondence related to parking enforcement. The request goes out on a Monday, and by Wednesday I get a reply from the management company saying they are working on it, but it may take a few weeks. If you are enjoying this HOA nightmare, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about parking wars, power-tripping board members, and satisfying payback. The hearing is scheduled for Thursday at 6 in the evening, and the letter still does not say where it is. I call the management company and they tell me it is at the clubhouse. I show up 10 minutes early and find Sharon sitting at a folding table with 2 other board members I do not recognize. There are no other residents in the room, no sign-in sheet, no agenda, no recording device. Sharon sees me and smiles. Glad you could make it. We will keep this short. I sit down and pull out my binder. I also brought a small key safe box that I got from a locksmith client last year. It is empty, but I am holding it like it is important, because I know Sharon is going to focus on it and I want her off balance. She opens her ring binder and starts reading. Mr. Evans, you are here because you violated Section 12, subsection C of the parking covenant by obstructing emergency access on June 4th. You also interfered with lawful towing on the same day. The fine is $250, payable within 14 days. I take a breath. I did not obstruct anything. That was my driveway, and the county confirmed in writing that it is not part of an emergency access zone. She does not blink. The county does not have authority over HOA covenants. The county has authority over fire codes and municipal violations, which is what you claimed when you called the tow truck. One of the other board members, a man in his 60s, clears his throat. Do you have proof of that? I pull out the printed email from the county and slide it across the table. He reads it, then looks at Sharon. This says the driveway is private property and not subject to fire lane restrictions. Sharon waves her hand. That is one person's opinion. We have a different interpretation. You cannot have a different interpretation of a municipal code, I say. Either it is a fire lane or it is not. She leans forward. If you make me repeat myself, it gets more expensive. I feel the anger rising, but I keep my voice steady. How many other people have you done this to? She smiles. Nobody complains. I pull out my phone and show her a screenshot. I joined the neighborhood group chat last week and asked if anyone else had been targeted by Sharon. Within an hour, I had 15 replies. Some people were fined for parking in their own garages because Sharon said the garage doors had to stay open for fire inspections. Some were towed from guest spots because their passes were not printed on the right color paper. One guy was fined 3 times in 1 week for the same alleged violation, and every time the paperwork had a different date. The complaints kept coming, and I saved every single one. She stares at the phone, then at me. Those are hearsay. They are witness statements. And I have more. I pull out Tom's certified statement and set it on the table. It is 2 pages, notarized, and it describes Sharon's pattern in detail. How she picks targets, how she changes the rules mid-enforcement, how she uses the threat of collections to force compliance. It also says the board votes happened without a quorum for the last 6 months, which means the entire enforcement wave is invalid. Sharon's face goes red. "Where did you get that?" "Tom gave it to me. He is willing to testify if this goes to court." The other board member picks up the statement and reads it. His face changes. "Is this true?" Sharon grabs the paper. "This is defamation." Tom is a disgruntled former board member. He has no credibility. "He has a notarized statement," I say, "and I have a records request pending with the management company. If the board votes were invalid, every fine you issued is invalid." She stands up. "This hearing is over. The fine stands." I stay seated. "No. I am not paying a fine for something I did not do, and I am not leaving until you agree to retract the violation in writing." She points at the door. "Get out or I will have you removed." I pull out my phone again and start recording. "Go ahead. Call whoever you want. I will wait." She stares at me for a long moment, then she sits down. The other board member whispers something to her and she shakes her head. "Fine, we will table this until the records request is complete." I stop recording. I want it in writing that the fine is suspended pending review. She pulls out a sheet of paper and writes a single sentence, "Fine suspended pending review." She signs it and slides it across the table. I fold it and put it in my binder, then I stand up. "One more thing," I say. "I am filing a complaint with the State Consumer Protection Office about your towing practices. If they find that you are using predatory vendors or issuing false violations, the HOA is going to be liable." Sharon does not say anything. She just stares at me with her arms folded, and I walk out. The next morning I wake up to find chalk marks on my tires. 4 white lines, 1 on each tire, perfectly aligned with the pavement. I take photos and send them to Rick. "She is marking your tires to prove you have not moved," he texts back. "If the marks are still aligned later, she is going to claim you parked illegally for an extended period. Move your truck and wash the marks off." I do, but 2 hours later Sharon shows up with her thermal printer and takes photos of where the marks used to be. She does not say anything, she just photographs the pavement and leaves. That afternoon I get another letter saying I am being fined for long-term street parking in violation of Section 8, subsection B. The letter includes a photo of the chalk marks as evidence. I call the management company and ask to speak to someone about Sharon's enforcement methods. They transfer me 3 times and finally I get a woman named Linda who says she is the compliance coordinator. I have been getting letters from Sharon Roberts about parking violations that do not exist, I say. She is using chalk marks, fake fire lane claims, and predatory towing to harass me. Linda sighs. "Mr. Evans, we have received several complaints about Miss Roberts. We are looking into it." "How long have you been looking into it?" "About 6 months." "And what have you done?" "We sent her a letter asking her to follow proper procedures." "That is it?" "We cannot remove a board member without a recall vote, and recalls require a petition signed by 20% of homeowners. Nobody has filed one yet." "Because she is intimidating them," I say. "She is flooding mailboxes with certified letters and threatening collections. People are scared." Linda does not respond right away. Finally, she says, "If you want to file a formal complaint, I can forward it to the board." I already filed one. I also filed a records request. When am I going to get a response? "We are working on it." I hang up and spend the rest of the day fuming. I have been dealing with this for weeks and nothing is changing. Sharon is still sending letters, still marking tires, still threatening to tow me. I feel like I am fighting a machine that does not care about facts or fairness. That night I cannot sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see her standing in my driveway with that smug smile and her little thermal printer. Around 2 in the morning, I hear a car door slam, and I look out the window. Sharon's white sedan is parked across the street, and she is walking up my driveway with a flashlight and a roll of stickers. I grab my phone and start recording through the window. She stops next to my truck, pulls a sticker from the roll, and slaps it on my driver's side window. Then she takes a photo with her phone, gets back in her car, and drives off. The whole thing takes less than a minute, but I have it on video. I go outside and peel the sticker off. It says violation notice in bold letters, with a box checked for unauthorized overnight parking. The date is blank. The signature line is blank. It is just a generic sticker, the kind you buy in bulk online. I send the video to Rick and he replies immediately, "That is gold. Save it." If this goes to court or a state complaint, that video proves she is acting without authorization and harassing you outside of normal enforcement hours. The next morning I get a letter from the HOA saying a surprise hearing has been scheduled for that afternoon to address my continued non-compliance. The letter says I have been given multiple opportunities to comply, and that the board has decided to move forward with collections proceedings if I do not pay all outstanding fines by the end of the week. The total is now $850. I look at the letter and I feel something snap inside me. I am done playing defense. I call Rick and tell him I am ready to use the trump card. He agrees. Then I call Linda at the management company and tell her I am filing a formal complaint with the State Consumer Protection Office, and that I am including evidence of false violations, harassment, and improper towing authorizations. She tries to talk me out of it, but I hang up. The hearing is at 4 in the afternoon, same clubhouse, same folding table. This time there are 5 board members instead of 2, including a man who introduces himself as the president. Sharon is sitting at the far end with her binder open, and she does not look at me when I walk in. The president clears his throat. "Mr. Evans, we are here to discuss your refusal to comply with HOA parking rules. You have accumulated multiple violations over the past month, and you have refused to pay the associated fines. We are prepared to move forward with collections if you do not resolve this today." I set my binder on the table and open it. Before we talk about fines, I want to talk about whether those fines are valid. He frowns. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Sharon has been issuing violations that do not exist, using fake fire lane claims, marking my tires without authorization, and showing up at my property in the middle of the night to place stickers without any board approval. I have video evidence, county confirmation that the ordinance was misrepresented, and a certified statement from a former board member describing her pattern of behavior." Sharon cuts in. "This is a waste of time. He is just trying to avoid paying." I turn to her. "You told me nobody complains." "That is correct." I pull out a stack of printed messages from the neighborhood group chat and drop them on the table. These are complaints. 15 residents, all describing the same pattern. You target people, you change the rules mid-enforcement, you use the threat of towing to force compliance, and you flood mailboxes with certified letters to overwhelm anyone who pushes back. The president picks up one of the printouts and reads it. His face changes. Why was I not informed about this? Nobody files formal complaints, Sharon says. These are just people venting in a group chat. They are witness statements, I say, and they all describe the same abuse. I also have evidence that the board votes authorizing these fines did not meet quorum requirements. If that is true, every fine you issued in the past 6 months is invalid. Sharon stands up. That is a lie. I pull out Tom's statement and slide it across the table. The president reads it, then looks at Sharon. Is this accurate? She does not answer. The president sets the paper down and rubs his face. Mr. Evans, we need time to review this. We are going to suspend all pending fines and schedule a full board meeting to address these issues. Sharon interrupts. You cannot do that. He is in violation. The president raises his hand. Sharon, sit down. We are done here. She does not sit. She stares at me, and her voice is low and shaking. Your paperwork is cute. Mine has a letterhead. I smile. Actually, mine has a letterhead too. It is from the State Consumer Protection Office. I filed a complaint this morning, and they opened a case file. Her face goes white. The room is silent. Finally, the president stands up. This meeting is over. We will notify all residents of the board meeting date and time. Mr. Evans, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I leave the clubhouse and walk back to my truck. My hands are shaking and I feel lightheaded, but I also feel like I just won something. I get in the truck and sit there for a minute, then I call Rick. I use the trump card, I say. He laughs. How did she take it? She looked like someone just pulled the floor out from under her. Good. Now wait. The state complaint is going to take a few weeks, but once they start asking questions, the HOA is going to panic. Management companies hate state investigations. They will do anything to avoid bad press. He is right. 2 days later, I get a call from Linda asking if I am willing to meet with the board president and a representative from the management company to discuss a resolution. I agree, and the meeting is set for the following Monday at a coffee shop near the neighborhood. The meeting lasts an hour. The board president apologizes and says the board was not aware of the extent of Sharon's actions. The management company representative, a man in a suit who introduces himself as Greg, says they are conducting an internal review and that all fines issued by Sharon without proper authorization will be voided. He also says they are revising the towing policy to require written board approval for every tow, and that Sharon is being removed from her role as pool and amenities chair effective immediately. What about the state complaint? I ask. Greg shifts in his seat. We are hoping you will consider withdrawing it in exchange for a formal settlement agreement. We will refund any fees you paid, void all pending fines, and agree in writing that no further enforcement action will be taken against you for any of the alleged violations. We will also agree to change the hearing rules so residents cannot be railroaded in closed meetings. I think about it. The settlement is more than I expected, and the rule changes are exactly what I wanted. But I also want to make sure Sharon cannot do this to anyone else. What happens to Sharon? I ask. She has agreed to step down from all leadership roles and will not be involved in any enforcement actions going forward, Greg says. If she violates that agreement, the board will pursue removal proceedings. I nod. I want one more thing. I want her to retract her claim in writing that my driveway is common area, and I want that retraction filed with the county so there is no question about it in the future. Greg looks at the board president, who nods. We can do that. I sign the settlement agreement that afternoon. 3 days later, I get a certified letter from Sharon with a single typed sentence. I retract my claim that the driveway at 428 Foxglove Falls Ridge is common area. It is signed and notarized. I file it with the county the next day. The State Consumer Protection Office keeps the case open for another 2 weeks, and during that time they interview several other residents who had similar experiences with Sharon. The final report is not made public, but Greg tells me the HOA has agreed to implement a formal complaint process, require third-party oversight for all enforcement actions, and conduct annual audits of parking violations to ensure compliance with state and local laws. 2 months later, the board holds a special election to fill the vacant committee chair positions. Sharon does not run. In fact, she stops showing up at board meetings entirely. I see her around the neighborhood occasionally, usually in her car, and she does not make eye contact. The ring binder is gone. The thermal printer is gone. She just drives past like I am not there. Rick calls me a few weeks after the settlement and tells me he heard from another HOA client that Foxglove Falls Ridge is now considered a cautionary tale in the property management world. Apparently, the management company sent out a memo to all their HOAs explaining what went wrong and warning board members not to give enforcement authority to individuals without oversight. He also tells me the tow company Sharon used lost their contract with the HOA after the state investigation found they were issuing tows without proper authorization. I ask him if he thinks Sharon learned anything from this, and he laughs. People like her do not learn. They just find a new target or a new way to control people. But at least she cannot do it in your neighborhood anymore. He is right. The HOA has been quiet ever since. No more certified letters, no more chalk marks, no more surprise hearings. I still get the occasional email about pool rules or landscaping standards, but they are reasonable and they do not single me out. The neighborhood group chat is still active, and every few days someone posts a story about an HOA issue somewhere else, and everyone agrees that Foxglove Falls Ridge used to be like that, but it is better now. I think about the whole experience sometimes, usually late at night when I am lying in bed and I hear a car door slam. For a second I tense up, waiting for the knock on the door or the flash of a camera, but then I remember it is over and I relax. The sleep disruption has gotten better. My health is improving. I can park in my own driveway without looking over my shoulder. One afternoon I am finishing a job at a house across town, and I stop at a hardware store to pick up some pipe fittings. I am walking back to my truck when I see Sharon's white sedan pull into the lot. She parks near the entrance and gets out, and I can see she is carrying a clipboard and wearing the same pink jacket. For a second I think she is going to walk over and start something. But then a tow truck pulls in behind her and I realize what is happening. She is arguing with the tow driver. He is standing next to his truck with his arms folded, and she is waving the clipboard at him, pointing at a car parked 2 spaces over. The car has a guest pass on the dashboard, but Sharon is insisting it is invalid. The driver shakes his head and says something I cannot hear, and Sharon pulls out her phone and starts recording. The driver steps back and makes a call, and a minute later a police cruiser pulls into the lot. I stay where I am, watching. The officer talks to both of them, checks the guest pass, and then tells Sharon to leave. She argues, but the officer points at his cruiser, and she gets in her car and drives off. The tow driver unhooks the car and leaves, and the officer follows. The whole thing takes about 10 minutes, and I realize Sharon is still doing it. She just moved to a different neighborhood. I get in my truck and drive home, and on the way I think about calling Linda at the management company to warn her, but I decide against it. Sharon is not my problem anymore. She is someone else's problem now, and whoever she is targeting will have to fight their own battle. I did my part. I stood up, I gathered evidence, I used the system, and I won. That is all I can do. A few weeks later, I get a letter from the State Consumer Protection Office saying the case has been closed and that the HOA has agreed to a settlement that includes refunds for affected residents, policy changes, and ongoing monitoring. The letter also says I can request a copy of the final report if I want, and I do. The report is 30 pages long, and it details every violation Sharon issued, every tow she authorized, and every hearing she conducted without proper oversight. It also includes testimony from 15 residents who describe the same pattern of harassment, intimidation, and rule changing. The report concludes that the HOA failed to provide adequate oversight and that Sharon exceeded her authority on multiple occasions. It recommends that all HOAs in the state implement formal complaint processes, require third-party audits, and ensure that enforcement actions are subject to board review. I file the report with my other documents and put the binder on a shelf in my garage. I do not plan to look at it again, but I keep it just in case. You never know when you might need proof that you were right. The neighborhood has changed since the settlement. People are more willing to speak up now. The group chat is more active, and residents are asking questions about rules and procedures instead of just accepting whatever the board says. The board itself has changed too. 2 new members were elected, both of them younger and more interested in transparency. They post meeting minutes online, they answer emails within a day or two, and they do not threaten people with collections over minor issues. I still see Sharon occasionally, usually driving through the neighborhood or walking near the pool. She does not carry the binder anymore, and she does not stop to take photos or mark tires. She just walks past, and I wonder if she thinks about what happened or if she has convinced herself that she was right all along. I will never know, and I do not care. I just want to live in my house, park in my driveway, and do my job without someone inventing violations to justify their need for control. Rick calls me one more time a few months later and tells me he heard the management company fired Sharon's tow vendor after the state report came out. Apparently, the vendor was issuing tows based on verbal authorizations instead of written ones, and they were charging inflated fees that the HOA was passing on to residents. The new vendor requires a signed tow authorization form with a photo of the violation before they will dispatch a truck, and they charge a flat rate that is posted on their website. Rick says it is a huge improvement and that other HOAs in the area are switching to the same system. I ask him if he has heard anything about Sharon, and he says she moved to a different neighborhood about an hour away. He does not know if she is on the board there, but he hopes not. I hope not too, but I also know that people like Sharon do not change. They just find new places to exert control, new rules to enforce, new targets to harass. The only thing you can do is fight back when it happens to you, and hope that the system works the way it is supposed to. For me, it worked. The settlement was fair, the rule changes were real, and the HOA is finally functioning the way it should. I can park in my driveway, I can have guests over, and I can sleep at night without worrying about Sharon showing up with a sticker and a camera. That is all I wanted, and I got it. The best part is knowing that other residents are protected now too. The new complaint process means people can report issues without fear of retaliation, and the third-party audits mean the board cannot just ignore evidence. The hearing rules were changed so residents cannot be railroaded in closed meetings with no notice and no ability to defend themselves. All of that happened because I refused to back down, because I gathered evidence, and because I used the one piece of proof that ended the whole game. I think about that sometimes when I am working, usually when I am under a sink or running a new water line. I think about how easy it would have been to just pay the fines and move on, to let Sharon win because fighting back was too exhausting or too risky. But I did not do that. I stayed calm, I kept my records, and I used the system the way it is supposed to be used. And it worked. A year after the settlement, I get a call from a neighbor I have never met. She introduces herself as Amy and says she lives 3 streets over. She tells me she is having trouble with the HOA over a fence violation, and she heard I had dealt with something similar. I tell her what happened, and I offer to share my documentation if it helps. She thanks me and says she will let me know. 2 weeks later, she calls again and says the HOA dropped the violation after she showed them a copy of the state report and threatened to file her own complaint. She says it took 1 email and the board backed off immediately. I congratulate her and tell her I am glad the system is working. That is what I wanted, not just for me but for everyone. I wanted the HOA to follow the rules, to treat people fairly, and to stop using fear and intimidation as enforcement tools. And now they do. It is not perfect, but it is better. A lot better. I still drive past Sharon's old house sometimes, usually on my way to a job or the hardware store. The house looks the same, but there is a new car in the driveway, and the HOA magnet is gone. I do not know who lives there now, but I hope they are not dealing with the same issues I did. I hope they can park in their driveway, have guests over, and sleep at night without worrying about stickers and chalk marks and surprise tow trucks. I hope the neighborhood stays quiet, and I hope the board stays accountable. But if something goes wrong, I know what to do. I know how to gather evidence, how to file complaints, how to use the system. And I know that sometimes you have to fight back, even when it is exhausting, even when it feels like you are fighting a machine that does not care. Because the machine does care, it just needs to be pushed in the right direction. The last time I saw Sharon was about 6 months ago. I was at a gas station filling up my truck and she pulled in 2 pumps over. She got out of her car, swiped her card, and started pumping gas. She looked older, tired, and she did not have the binder or the thermal printer. She just stood there staring at the pump display, and for a second I thought about saying something. But I did not. I just finished filling up, got in my truck, and drove away. I do not know what she is doing now, and I do not care. I just know that I am done dealing with her, done fighting over parking spaces and fake violations and midnight sticker patrols. I am done with HOAs that think they can do whatever they want because nobody pushes back. I pushed back, and I won. That is enough. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the support.